And good morning and welcome to Touch Base Daily. My name is Ron Foster and I'm touching base with you as I do every day, pretty much because I am addicted to social media and talking to my friends. That's what I do. So, yes, I am here every day. Well, on Touch Base Daily, it's Monday through Friday. But we do our Saturdays. Usually I'm somewhere on an adventure in New York City and I'll share that. But Sundays, I do try to stay away from social media. So I am usually on a mental social media break on Sundays. I try, unless it's Easter Sunday, which was just passed, and we did photos on our wonderful Easter bonnet parade. And let's see who's in the building. What's going on, Lisa? Lisa is in the building, and Miss G.R. Houston Jack is in the building. So good to see you. So today is our Wisdom Wednesday. As you guys know, it is Wisdom Wednesday. And do or do not, there is no try. That's on a movie. That's from a movie, I do believe. I do believe that is from a movie, Miss G. Yeah, so today is our Touch Base Daily Wisdom Wednesday. And we have Jelani coming on deck in a little bit. And I'm so excited. Jelani is one of my favorite people. I am so glad that Daya introduced him to me and this wonderful family of folks in this community. And so he's going to be on here. Let me just kind of get my little banners in the right place because that's what it is. Today is Wisdom Wednesday. And there we go. Let's put those titles up there so you know where you are. Also, I'm so excited about, can I just say before I start, Indie Soup has been so gracious to this platform. And is that now you see me live. You see me live every day, 11:15. But now you see the repeats at 4 o'clock on Indie Soup Media. And so that is so awesome that, we're on that platform as a repeat of our show. So if you miss us live, you can catch the repeat. And this is one of those, I think, interviews, conversations. I hate to say interviews. This is a conversation that we'll be having. So conversation. And that we'll be having Jelani and I. What's going on, Omar? Omar is in the building. What's going on, sir? So good to see you. He says Wisdom Wednesday, aka Hump Day. So now there are a lot of things going on in the world right now, and I'm going to resist from talking about them to tomorrow. Because tomorrow is when we talk politics and current events. But we got a whole lot to talk about tomorrow when it comes to all the current events that are happening in the world. It is one of those things that so much to say, so much to talk about. So anyway, hey Brian, welcome. Brian's in the building. Just seeing you guys coming in here, but I'm not going to talk much. I'm just going to get right to it because this is our Wisdom Wednesday. We dive right into our guests, and we don't like to keep our guests waiting. But I definitely wanted to show one is his Instagram page and what inspires me about Jelani's work, Jelani Ameer, and so let me just show you the work, so that way you can see why I love this brother's work, and not only that, he has grown to be an incredible person that I care about, and just a wonderful person. So this is Mr. Jelani right here. There we go. We're just gonna go through some of these photos. I love him. I love his style. So one of the things I'm like, I need a style. We all need a style. But I love his photography. His photography is street photography, documentarian, so documentary photography, portrait photography, and he really does dive into allowing the viewer to experience the culture, and I mean Black culture. It's just really beautiful the way he sees the world. I had the opportunity to have him with me photographing during Christmas time, during our fundraiser, or I should say, clothing and gifts and food distribution up in the Bronx, and that was such an amazing time with him. And he was doing his photos, and he took his camera out and went to work, and so we were both able to bless those folks with some photography in their event. But I love his work. You know what's also what I love about not like most Instagram accounts. If you have not been to his Instagram account, this is it, Jelani period Ameer. And we're going to talk about some of these photos because they've always sparked calm with me, love for our folks, memory lane of how I grew up. And it's interesting that even though there's several generations of us, right? Most of us have still experienced the same. We all should say we've all had the same experiences growing up, because there's some traditions that are passed down from generation to generation, and it doesn't matter where you are. Like if you're in New York City, or if you're in Baltimore, Maryland, or if you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, or LA, Black folks, we have so many common traditions across the country. However, we are not monolithic in our belief systems. We are not monolithic in the way we see the world. However, there are still some traditions that we have that go across the board. Anyway, I see Omar says, I need to do more street photography. So here we go. I'm going to, with no further ado, bring Mr. Jelani onto the stage, take this off, and bring him on. What's going on, Mr. Jelani?
How you doing, Ryan? I'm checking the mic now. Are we good?
Oh yeah, now you sound good. And
Okay.
Jelani is Mr. Cool. He speaks very calm and cool. Whenever you're around Jelani, it's like there's no need for crazy. So Jelani, what's going on? How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing better. Better is the word. I feel like
Better.
I was telling you before, I was processing some emotional things and been laying low key for the most part for the last.
Yes.
It's already April, which is crazy. So yeah, for the last month and change, I've been laying pretty low. But I feel like the warmer weather and more sunlight is calling me back outside. So I think I'm ready to face the world again.
Wow. So for those that don't know, Jelani's been he's visited us before. We've heard from him before, and but there's a whole bunch of new folks on here that may not have met Jelani, and so we're just gonna take it from the beginning. So Jelani, how did you get into photography?
Um, I feel like I'm doing my best to like remember the exact point. I think around the early stages of social media, like even
Mm-hmm.
before MySpace, really, there was there were platforms for like young teens. Like we had uh there was one called Skonex that was really popular among my generation, and then
Mm.
there was another platform that I'm forgetting the name of, but basically it kind of primed us for things like Facebook and MySpace, but we always had like new profile photos, so you kind of had to keep up to date with like whether you got new clothes or whatever it was that you felt like showing off, or whatever it is that's important to you when you're like 13, 14 years old. So I would play around with like a point and shoot, uh, and I got pretty creative. If I ever find that folder of photos, I'll show you. Uh, a lot of them are pretty embarrassing now, but they were like the early stages of like what I wound up doing. Um, and then uh, it's something that I played around with, and I didn't really get serious until Instagram, maybe. Like
Mm-hmm.
whenever Instagram came to, because Instagram was Apple first, so iPhones got it first, and then when it eventually came to Android, I was like, okay, now I can play and join in on the fun. And I was taking photos on my phone because I think phones were starting to
Nice.
get to the point where you could get a pretty solid image out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that kind of sparked my curiosity again with photography, but less profile photos and photos of me, and more photos of people around me, things around me. Um, and it wasn't until, man, maybe 2013 where like I left
Mm-hmm.
the last job that I worked, where I worked for someone else. That was like the last job that I worked for someone else. And I went broke for my own camera. I had been borrowing a friend's camera. Shout out to Casey for letting me borrow her Sony, a mirrorless Sony. It was like a little tiny mirrorless camera, but it allowed me to do some of my earliest photo sessions with people. I think I was
How old were you
charging
at that time when you were doing photo
2013.
session? Mm-hmm.
Uh, 2013, so that's over 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, about
So it
10
must have
years.
been like
Okay, 10 years ago.
years. So it must have been 22 or
Wow.
23. Um, yeah, and I think I was only charging like $60 for a photo shoot. So you got a deal back then, but
You got a good
um,
deal.
yeah, but yeah, after some practice and the years passed, I just started to, I guess, find more of a purpose with my work. Like before, it was not to say like I was aimless, but I think back in 2013, between 2013 2015, it was just something that I did for fun, which is still at the root of what I'm doing. But I think I started to find more purpose, and I think around maybe late 2015, 2016, there were just a lot of every once in a while you get like a surge in police brutality coverage, where
Mm,
cops do what they do, and
yeah.
they harm us and kill us in certain ways. And there's a bunch of slaps on the wrist, and they paint us as a very specific kind of people.
Okay.
And I didn't like that. I didn't like the images that were being used to like the propaganda. Basically, I didn't enjoy how our images were being used as like justification for the mistreatment. So
Mm,
I felt like as an image maker, I have I have this power to reshape that narrative and like keep upholding the truth, even
yes.
when people are spouting a bunch of nonsense and lies. Uh, that's what photography really. It jumped from like a hobby and a thing that was fun to me to like this is a part of my purpose now. Um,
Wow.
and then I think around what's the like 2020, I want to say like
We lost it.
2021,
We're losing
2022.
your voice a little bit. Just if you can come into the
Uh,
mic a little bit.
I think I know why that's happening, but I currently can't do anything about it. So I'm gonna try to bring the mic a little closer. Uh, Still
Yeah, got it. You're good. You're back.
okay. I want to say like 3+ years ago, like maybe 3 Christmases ago, I was gifted
Yes.
a film camera, like the twin lens camera that you see me with. Um,
Yes.
yeah, someone really important to me gifted me that, and when I got like the first rolls that I ever shot, when I got those back, I was like, oh, this is it. Like if somebody stole my digital camera tomorrow, like I'd be okay. Like this is, I feel, I feel like film is where I'm meant to be. Um,
Yes.
so from that point, like my purpose became even more defined. Like I was now called to like ask people for their portraits when I was out in the street, whereas before I didn't really do that. I didn't really feel called to stop anyone for their photo, especially if I didn't know them. Like it just wasn't that just wasn't an automatic thing for me. But once I had a film camera, it felt like I'm meant to be documenting us so that
Mm,
decades from now, centuries from now, there's this archive. I've contributed to the greater archive of imagery of us, and you can see the truth in these images. It's not you can't manipulate these images. There's too much truth and there's too much beauty in them for you to try to, paint it any other way. Um, yeah, I
Now,
think
before you
that's
go,
like,
you said like you decided something in you inspired you to document, and the key word there was us.
yeah,
What was that what was that, what do you call it, the point that you were able to say, you know what, I'm doing this, I'm photographing things of interest, things that you like, photographing yourself, but then
mhm,
you said you made a purpose decision to photograph us. Can I now I'm going to ask you a double question. Who is us in your mind? Who are the us?
yeah. For for me, it's the diaspora, it's the African Caribbean diaspora. I feel like that's the that's just been the focus. It just makes too much sense to me. I think
Mm,
that's yeah. It's like if somebody would have asked me why that's the focus, it's like in short, God told me to. Like it's not it's that simple really. Um, what you're scrolling through now is block party from maybe two, no, maybe 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago.
mhm,
Um, and again, it's moments like this where I'm able to be a quote unquote fly on the wall while we're just
mm,
congregating and being ourselves, and nobody's really paying attention to me necessarily, and I can just document us as honestly as possible, and
mhm.
yeah, just have these records of images that people can look back on. Um, that means everything to me. So yeah,
Wow.
us is the African and Caribbean diaspora.
Wow. And you said something to you. For you, it's a calling. It's spiritual.
Yeah.
When did you become so sensitive to your spirituality, or, what made you say, you know what, this is more than just about me, but this is something deeper, something more spiritual. Did you, grow up in, church, or were you just kind of like, or is your religion or your spiritual path outside of religion, as in traditional? What was your inspiration on your spirituality towards photography?
Uh, it's a good question. I mean, I grew up in like the Catholic school system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I can call that an influence, but I didn't. I didn't really have like the upbringing where I was just like constantly in church or anything like that. I wasn't even baptized. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but growing up in the Catholic school system, mass was mandatory. So
Mm-hmm.
there were moments when we had to be in church and we would, we recite the Lord's Prayer and maybe say a Hail Mary or two every once in a while, and
Mm-hmm.
do the Rosary once in a while too, and so I was familiar with at least like Catholicism, like I was familiar with that and familiar with stories in the Bible and things like that, and I enjoyed reading the Bible. I remember that. But in regards to like my own spirituality and figuring out what that was, I don't know if that came until high school, where like I felt like I
Wow.
had a choice in that because as far as I knew, I just kind of was born into this system and I was tossed into the school system that was run by the archdiocese, and I was told that you got to say the Pledge of Allegiance before class and the Lord's Prayer, and then you go to mass mandatorily, and yeah, like I had no choice at that time.
Yes.
Um, but in high school, I felt like there has to be a way for me to communicate with God because I believe in God, but how it's being
Mm-hmm.
taught to me doesn't fully resonate. So I I don't necessarily subscribe to a specific religion, but I do believe in God for sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so more my spirituality is definitely informed by conversations with God. Like I
Yeah.
pray day to day, and there's no way I can see the world the way that I do and capture it without some sort of higher power influencing me. And I fully recognize that.
It's interesting you bring that up
Yeah.
because there was a quote that I found on your Instagram, a couple of one of the series. You said, "Every time I'm invited into a sacred space of document, I pray that God guides my eye before I follow through on my shutter. God was good in
It's
this
God.
day.
God was
God
God.
in
Yeah.
God in this day. I give thanks for Liz and Michael, yada yada. And but
Yeah.
that really, when I was going through your page, I said, "Wow, that's pretty." First of all, one is to art, not to be afraid to articulate it. It's
Hmm.
one thing to feel it and to say, I'm being inspired by God. My spiritual connection to the world. I'm being inspired. But then you literally stated it, and that was, to me, it really was like, it resonated with me, and I said, I gotta
Yeah.
put this in here. I mean, it's just interesting how we've gone that direction. Sometimes I go through these and I just put down things I think we're going to talk about. But this was one that I am so glad that you have kind of like journeyed into this part of the conversation. I love it. I'm
Yeah.
going to say it again. Every time I'm invited into a sacred space to document, I pray that God guides my eye before I follow through on my shutter. That's I need more. Tell me, tell me what was going through your mind and in your heart when you made that statement. I mean, I can go through a lot of statements in your page because you are a deep thinker and you
Mm.
are spiritual. You are definitely someone that tries to find your inner and then express it into your outer. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's go on this.
You,
Every time I let's go in a sacred space of documenting, but I love this part. I pray that God guides my eye before I follow through on my shutter. Wow. So deep.
yeah. That's yeah. But I mean, again, I can't. Not that I don't feel like I could take any kind of ownership over like my skill because it is something that I train, but I
Mhm.
really do feel like in regards to like finding your eye and
Mhm.
your how you see the world is to me deeply influenced by God working through you. So I feel like I'm seeing the world how most people see it, but apparently not because that there have been certain comments that have been made about my work and messages that I perceive that
Mhm.
seem to insinuate that there's something greater at play. So
Mm.
I never want to leave that out. Um, and yeah, it's true. Like when I have a big shoot, especially when it's been a while since I've taken any kind of photographs, I definitely pray because like I don't want to mess it up. Like especially if somebody's
Mhm.
trusting me with something like a wedding, like the photos that you showed before, um, with my friend with the floral wreath during the vows, like those kind of moments. Like I don't want to mess that up. I would love to produce and make an image or images that the the client or the loved one is proud of. So I feel like I gotta pray. Like it's just that's just how it is for me. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's necessary.
Like I'm going through some of these photos. I mean, I did put I'm gonna go through some that I noted and kind of like put to the side, and I said I gotta ask questions about some of these photos. But you know one of my favorites I'm gonna go to. So I'm going, and
Yeah,
just so those that are listening, like Omar did, if you have a question, make sure you put Q and then your question so that way I can see it in the comment box. So that way we can talk about your questions after. Okay. So if you have a question, put the letter Q before your question. So that way now we know it is a questions for Jelani or myself. Okay. So here's a photo.
Yeah.
This is like this is your street photography. Now, I would say, and as I'm looking through all your photos, you pretty much use your film camera probably 75 to 80% of the time. More,
More.
90%.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. That again, like once I got those first batch of film rolls back, I was like, oh, this is it. This is it for me. Um,
Really?
yeah. Yeah. Um, Also, the twin lens camera is just it's easy to carry, and it's waist
Mhm.
level, so it's easier to like look down and get my shot, be a little bit more inconspicuous. But also, if it does spark a conversation, or if a conversation is sparked with someone on the street, they usually look at my camera first, and they talk about it, and they want to know more, and that kind of opens up a space for me to get a portrait. So I lean more into my film photography because of that too. It just seems to spark more conversation, and it opens people up.
Yeah, I would. This is just my assumption. Like I'm listening to what you just said, is that because you are looking down into your
Uh,
camera, most people are not aware that you're photographing them.
yeah. Um, I have a rule with that. If I'm
Yes.
if I'm far enough away to not disrupt anyone's situation or a moment that they're having, then I feel like I have permission to take a photo. But if I'm close enough, then I feel obligated to ask and initiate a conversation with the person. If they say yes, great. If they say no, that's fine too. Um, but I always want to be as respectful as possible. Um, but yeah, I've noticed that my most of my photos now are primarily film. Um, so yeah, everything that you've been scrolling through has been film. Aside from the
Wow.
block party photos, everything has been film.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and even with my digital work now, I do my best to like
Hmm.
emulate my film work. So even that's been a
Uh,
process in trying to get my digital to feel a little bit more textured and layered like my film work.
man, I'm still waiting for one of these days. It's got to be soon. Your work is going to be in someone's gallery. I
Mm,
mean, you have such that's Mr. Lewis right there,
yeah,
the
yeah.
legend.
Hmm.
When did you take this photo?
Uh, whenever it says I posted that, it must have been around that time.
This oh yeah,
But
it says I'm sorry, my bad. It says it
it
looks
should be
like
at the bottom.
2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was in the meatpacking district. He was just sitting there,
Nothing like the
and of
meatpacking
course,
district, right?
yeah, yeah, and of course, I recognized him, and I went up to him and asked if it was cool if I took his photo. Um, which he said it was cool. He's like, you get one. So I was like, oh damn, okay. I gotta make sure my exposure's right with everything. I think he even told me what to set what to set my camera to because he can measure light without a meter, which is insane. Um,
Yeah, he's
and
incredible.
I,
He is
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, he took one of me in exchange as well. Cool, cool brother, definitely a cool brother.
Yeah, he photographed me this year. I was like I felt so honored to be photographed by the great Luis Mendez.
Hmm.
If you are in New York City, you may find him somewhere around B&H music,
Yep,
B&H photography, where we have our store, and the store that most photographers go to. And you'll also see him most of the time in Grand Central Station.
yep,
He's usually there, and he's usually also in Soho, and so Soho, and now just and I didn't know he was in also in the meatpacking district. But
I
if
didn't
you
know that
want
either.
to run into this gentleman, and he's usually photographing quite a deal of visitors into New York City's Grand Central Station. He photographs them with the portal, and he takes it, and then wait for it to kind of like dry and what it called to and then after that he signs it and gives it to the people.
Yeah,
So Yeah, a legend, a living legend here in New
Yeah.
York City. Here's another one. Here's a couple. I got 1,000 questions. So
Yeah. Sure.
you know me, right? What
Yeah.
what what drives you? Again, I know we touched upon it a little bit about it, but what drives you to be a photographer? Like you get up in the morning, you grab your camera, and you say,
Mm.
"I got to get out into the world." What drives you?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, I want to point it back to God, really. Like, there are days where I make it a point to just let me just walk around the neighborhood and just see what happens. It's been a while
Mhm,
since I felt called to do that. Other times, I'm just if I'm running errands or I have to something else to do, like my camera, either one of my cameras or both of my cameras are on me, so I'm always prepared. I think it's just it's more of a subconscious drive, I guess. It's not really
mhm,
like at the front of my mind. Like I know some people are they're dead set on their schedules, like they know when they're going to go out into the city or the neighborhood or wherever it
mhm.
is and just document at least once a day. I'm that's not how I like to work, at least not right now. So I would say my biggest driving force is again just God. If I feel called to go out and take photos, I'm going to do that. Um, I think yeah, I would probably also need to sit with that more because I don't know if I've given it much thought beyond that. It's
Wow.
more of like a second nature thing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I would have to sit with that some more.
It's always interesting when it's always good. It makes me happy when I hear other photographers because I feel passionately about that. We photographers are called to be photographers. I consider photography a calling. We get
Hmm.
to freeze time. We get to be a part of history. We have the privilege of documenting life in today's world so that people in the future can see it. There's
Hmm.
so many levels of this calling of being a photographer that I consider it to be I've always said it, and I've mentioned it here on this platform many times. It's a calling. It really
Absolutely.
is a calling, and for those that are true, I mean, there's some photographers obviously that they do it for the money or they do it for whatever the other reasons that they do it.
Yeah.
But I find that the folks that do photography as a calling, there's something about their photos that resonate on a deeper level.
Hmm.
It's like Omar said about your photos. He could feel your passion in your
Mm.
photos, and I'll never forget one time I was I know this is your interview, but conversation. But I remember I had just got back from Africa and I photographed these elephants, and I love elephants. I am passionate about wildlife. I am passionate about preserving our world for
Yeah.
the people to come. And I have photographed all these photos of elephants. And this the wife of a judge, she had the opportunity to see my photos, like, private kind of showing, and she started to cry,
Mm.
and I said I mean, I was like at the moment, I was like, in my mind, I was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And she looked over to me after she looked at the photos. She says, "I could feel the heartbeats of the elephants. I could feel their emotions. You
Hmm.
captured their you captured their essence. And my love for elephants, you just made me emotionally connected to every one of your photos."
Yeah.
And I was not aware. I was just like, "Oh, this is just how I shoot." I mean, I love what I love, and I love to connect people to the things I love. I mean, right in the back
Yeah.
there, over there, there's an elephant. It's on
Right.
my
Right.
wall.
Right.
Um, but photography is so it requires to really do it and do it well. It requires passion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself? I'm going to ask 2 questions about time.
Hmm.
So the first one is 10 years from now, 15 years from now, because you're young.
Hmm.
But when
Yeah,
you turn 50, let's make it that way. 20 something, what
yeah.
is it, 20 years from now, 50, when you're 50 years old, what would you like to look back on and say you have accomplished?
Um, I would like to have I would like to be able to first of all have all my work officially archived, like properly organized and things like that for and just I want to know that I did right by my people.
Mm,
Um, it's something that I reflected on, even like stepping into my 30s, was wondering wondering if I did right by my people, and not just I
mhm,
don't mean with photography. I just mean with like my life. Like, did I do right by the people around me? And as I was crossing that threshold from 29 to 30, it was very much affirmed that yeah, I did. I did do right
mhm,
by my people. Just the pouring in of certain messages and affirmations and all that. And I want to continue that. I want to continue to do that, not just through me living my life, but also through my work. Like I want people to feel like um I want people to feel like they've been seen and they've been held
mm,
in a certain way, like they've been handled properly. Um, 'Cause I think a lot of us are products of our upbringings and traumas and all of those things, and it's I I as a creative want to play a part in like the shifting of that, like the breaking of the chain or the breaking of the cycle or whatever it is in terms of what's possible for us.
yeah,
I want to serve that in some way. Um, and one of the biggest ways is through photography right now. Um, so yeah, what I see for myself is that like as like a broad umbrella, but underneath that, I would like to be a benefactor as well, like hold space
mm,
for people and invest in people and creatives and allow them to also do what it is that they're meant to do on this earth while they're here.
wow,
Um, and just yeah, just provide access and resources. Um, because that's something that I feel like I could use right now.
yes, yes,
If I could speak to my 50-year-old self, it's like get those. I hope you got those resources and that access that we needed, so that we can help provide it for other creators coming up after us. Um, yeah, but I just want to be sure I do right by my people.
wow. And now my next question is taking you back to another part. What would you tell your 16-year-old self today? If you could
Uh,
go back and tell your 16-year-old, give your 16-year-old self some wisdom. What
yeah,
wisdom would you impart into your 16-year-old self?
I, I, I would say I would basically I don't want to use the word warn as if there's like doom and gloom ahead, but I would basically say that there are going to be a lot of people in your life who don't understand that you're on a specific timeline. Like you maybe don't have the words for it just yet, but you're very
Yes.
much in alignment with what God wants for you. And there's going to be a lot of people
Mm,
that don't understand the ways in which you show up and how you show up, and that's okay. Just just stay the path. Like just continue doing what you're doing. Like you're exactly where you need to be right now. Uh, don't project too far into the future. Like you're good essentially. Whenever you doubt yourself, just remember that you're good. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever decisions you're making for yourself, you're doing exactly what it is that you need to be doing. So I think I struggled with that growing up, especially wanting to be a creative and even expressing that to my parents. My parents kind of had the conversation, what are you going to do with your life? And I told them very like starry-eyed, like I want to be a creative. Like that's what I want to do. I think at the time it was music, and I'm still passionate about music, but I just knew I wanted to create, and it was
Yes.
very much the, well, what does that mean? Like, how is that going to bring in money? Basically, I now, with the tools that I have now, and like the therapy that I've done, like I understand that my parents were just worried, like
Yes.
most parents would, but the way they expressed it was very much like the fear manifested as just disbelief in what it is that I
Wow.
wanted for myself. So it led to a lot of like headbutting and things like that. So if I could tell, if me now could tell my 16-year-old self anything, it's that your your passion for your passion to be creative for a living is exactly what it is that you're meant to be doing. And you've known it even before 16. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful. And yeah, man, I think a lot of us, if we were able to go talk back to our 16-year-old selves, there's something about it truly is wisdom that comes with age. And the longer you live, the longer you realize you don't know. And the longer you live, the more you realize that it's okay. It's
Right,
okay. You are enough. You are okay.
exactly.
And man, that's beautiful. A sidebar,
Hmm.
because we were hanging out in the city a couple of months ago, Union Square Park. We had a
Hmm.
good time.
We did.
And we went to where you get your film from, and we hung out. We had a good time.
Hmm.
But you were on a rush to somewhere. Music. What's
I,
going on? You have this is the sidebar. You love music. What do you do in music? Could you just let people a little insight on what you do as a music lover? There's a lot of music
I,
lovers in this community.
I saw Lisa say talk about your music, and I was trying to like divert. I was trying to be like maybe next conversation, but um,
Oh no, I had it on my list. I really did have it on my
oh
list.
wow, okay,
I had
uh,
it on my list of questions to ask you.
oh wow, okay, uh, yeah. I mean, I feel like my first solidified memory of like what I remember music to be was More Money, More Problems. On
Ah,
BET, I was still living in Harlem, and I was still like a little kid, and I was staying with my babysitter at the time, Miss Deanna, and she just had BET on, and the music video for More Money, More Props came on, and I just remember like I just remember the shiny tracksuits and like just the massive sets that they were on and stuff, and I just was like enamored by what it was that I was seeing. I was like, I didn't fully understand what it was, but I knew I liked it, and hip hop was just this thing that always existed around me. I was constantly listening
wow.
to it, whether it was on the radio in my house, um, and I just knew I loved it. I liked how it was poetry, like the ways in which the ways in which I was learning how words rhyme and things like that in school. I was seeing how we were applying that to tell stories and
Mm,
share certain narratives, and also speak out against things, and uh, the comment on social issues and things like that. So as I got older and I recognized the power in that, I was like called to write myself. So I also MC for a while. Like it started off small. You write in your book and you should be taking notes and stuff like that. But then it evolves
mhm,
into
mhm.
you're writing verses and then full songs. And then in high school, I started to find other people that were doing the same thing. And it's like, oh, you do this too? Like let's do this together. And
Yes.
kind of found like a tribe from high school, and I still keep in touch with them to this day. Um, it and that evolved into like, well, let's find a studio and let's all meet up and record stuff and get used to hearing our voices that are slowly getting deeper and weirder, and master that, and then go perform some of these songs in front of people, and then we just found more like-minded artists. And I was
Yes.
really from like 20, I'll say from like 2012
Mm-hmm.
to 2016. I was in Brooklyn heavily in Brooklyn. And I was
Brooklyn in the
immersed.
house.
Yeah, I was immersed. Yeah, as somebody from uptown, like I can completely say that I love Brooklyn. Um, it was a really beautiful time. I was talking about it with a friend of mine who also came up with me during that time, just how different it was to be an
Mm-hmm.
artist, specifically like a songwriter or an MC, to all the venues that were out there in Brooklyn at the time, and the places that you can kind of go into, the bars and the like hole in the wall venues, the open mics circuits and stuff like that. It was just, yeah. Um, it was a really beautiful time, and I miss music a lot. I miss being able to write about the things that I did and perform them, and then get the reception immediately when you get off stage. Like a lot of what you feel and see in my photography was showing up in my writing too. It comes back to
Wow.
God, love, and blackness, and being able to speak about that and then get the instant feedback from people who just needed to hear that night or something like that. Like that'll never get old to me. Um,
Wow.
yeah, you can
You
find some. I was just gonna say you can find some features that I've done on Spotify, Apple Music, and all that stuff if you type in my artist name. But outside of that, I don't have any like personal projects on streaming platforms. But whatever I've helped my friends with and put features on their projects, you can hear those. But that's about it.
I have one. You are truly a creative on all levels. Music, photography, and writing. And there's one thing, and this is not to be political, but this is also something that
Hmm.
really touched my heart when I read this writing of yours, your thoughts.
Let's talk about it.
You
Yeah,
said,
let's talk about it.
I said with the I side with the oppressed always. Palestinians' reaction to the occupation is being weaponized against them. The rhetoric I hear on news outlets basically saying that Palestinians have this coming, how they're aggressive, bloodthirsty, savage, is the same rhetoric used against people who look just like me here in America. It's a well documented tactic that hardens a person's heart to the slaughter and oppression of a people. The loss of life on both sides breaks my heart. At the same time, the path to peace is through the end of the occupation. Palestine will have no further need to defend itself if those who oppress them no longer maintain the apartheid. Man, and it goes on. I just know that
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't want to. I. This have to be a part two to this
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
because we are definitely we for those that don't know we have we're on indie suit media, so we keep these to an hour to make sure that we end. But just quickly, you 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 truly do, and I read through all of it. I read through my thoughts, the
Hmm.
continued, and then I'm just gonna go to the ending,
Hmm.
and then I'm gonna close out. You say here in the ending, it's truly disheartening to know that descendants of survivors of Nazi occupation who know oppression so intimately don't see the hypocrisy in what's being done to the Palestinian people. I hear fear in the talking points used in the unnecessary debates and the long winded interviews. A fear that if the boot isn't kept on the necks of the Palestinians, they will surely turn around and do it to the oppressors. As a black man, I've heard this ideology before, and it is pure projection. I do not believe that any group is monolithic in their existence. The sum do not represent the all. Free Palestine. Man, this is I think as photographers, this is something that is so resonant in how we feel about the world we live in.
Mhm.
Our concerns, like Jamel Shabazz is in the building, and Jason was in the building last Wednesday. Sorry, yeah, we photographers, we feel the world in a way
Mhm.
that is probably a little deeper than the average Joe walking the streets. It's just that's how we are. We feel the world.
Mhm.
Photographers feel the pulse of the world. You how are you and how do you plan in the future to use your resources as a photographer to bring awareness to what's going on in Palestine or on the Gaza
Mhm.
or future matters around the globe? I mean, how do you see yourself embedding yourself into history in regards to humanity being neglected on these different atrocities or different global affairs that are happening around the globe? Where do
Yeah.
you fit in? Where do you want to fit in? And then we'll close out.
Honestly, feel like I feel as though I can best serve the world through my art first.
Hmm.
Um, in regards to and even that post about Palestine, like I not that I hesitated to post that, but it was
Hmm.
more so like I felt like I really needed to pause to articulate myself clearly before I posted anything. Because I knew what my stance was. It wasn't that. It was just I know that it's a delicate topic as I'm not Palestinian. It's like I don't live in the Gaza Strip, so like I have to be mindful when I'm speaking, even in support of other people. But
Yes.
um, the way I also see myself being of service is again it goes back to the benefactor piece. Like the more resources and access tools that I gain, the more I can help empower other people. Um, and I feel like art, to me, I feel like art is one of the biggest ways to impact. Um, so if I can uplift other artists, to say in a matter like this one, if I can uplift Palestinian artists to showcase their their stories and
Hmm.
tell the world the truth, like that's for me that's plenty. Like to be able to provide platforms and spaces and resources in that way and amplify those voices. Um,
Wow.
yeah, that's how I see myself helping. Like I don't want to be, and if I can, I would avoid being the face of most of it. Like I
Yeah.
don't even want that. And I want people to have the necessary megaphone and the
Yes.
necessary stage to be able to say what it is that they need to say.
Hmm.
Um, I think I don't know exactly how I'm gonna get there yet, but I see it. I see it very vividly in my head, like just continuing to be a creative, but also being a benefactor. Um,
Yeah. And being an
being able to
ally.
investigate.
I
Yeah.
would say being an ally to those that are trodden on, or the ally to some the people that are being treated unjustly, an ally to the people in the world, or in situations that the world, a portion of the world, is not sympathetic to or show empathy to. Man, I could go on. This definitely I got to be a part two, because
Yeah,
you and I could talk about politics, and I mean not politics in the political sense, but more of the how we can benefit humanity as photographers.
yeah,
And I often look at a lot of the photographers out there who are posting and reposting different things that are happening in the Middle East or happening in Ukraine or happening. There's so many hotspots around the world right now
yeah.
that
Sudan, the Congo.
so yeah, Sudan, Congo, the situation, and it somehow humanity has to come to terms with the need to love other humans. I mean,
Yeah,
again, I believe if we made decisions based on love, we will make better decisions.
absolutely.
We will make better decisions for the love of humanity. Whether you're black, white, Jewish, Gentile, Palestinian, German, Russian, Ukrainian, if we made our decisions based on love, the world would be a better place.
Yeah.
There's two questions in the room here, and then we're gonna get out of here real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Omar says, "What is your film choice?"
Like,
I guess your film that you use for your camera.
like most, like my favorite one.
Yeah, I guess he
Um,
just says, "What is your film of choice?"
Man, if it's I'm over here looking at my collection of film.
I
If
think you
it's
got
if it's
multiples.
yeah, if it's black and white, Kodak Tri-X 400 for sure.
Okay.
Just an incredibly versatile film. Um, I just love the way it looks. But I think that was like the first black and white film that I really gave it a shot. I think it's because I watched the Tina
Mm.
Turner documentary, and they showed a lot of the negatives from like, her studio sessions and things like that. And it was basically an early version of Tri-X. So I was like, oh, that's the film I got to use now.
Wow.
But if it's color, if it's color and I got the money for it, Portrait 800 is like it's just it just allows you to shoot in so many different scenarios, low light, um, like indoor, outdoor. You can just cover a lot of ground. Um, so yeah, black and white Kodak Tri-X 400, color Portrait 800. But I
Awesome.
also am someone who experiments a lot, so I don't mind trying new films or quirky films. I don't mind doing that. But yeah, those are my two go-tos.
Also, guys, if you want to follow Jelani's page on Instagram, it's Jelani.Ameer. And if you want to go to his website, we didn't even go into his website. There's so many beautiful photos there. Noahbility.us. So check out that his page there. Do what you can and support this brother. He is an amazing photographer with a good heart. And like I said, every time I talk to this gentleman, I just walk away feeling so enriched. And again, I'm sure you have had that benefit today of enjoying Mr. Jelani Ameer. Thank you so much, Jelani, for joining us. We're gonna have to get off of this thing because we could stay here all day and talk. We could. I see in here what else is in the live chat real quick.
I'm trying to answer some of them through text real quick.
Okay.
Some of the last minute questions.
Yeah, he is in New York City. Have a beautiful day, all. I see from Trish. Omar says, awesome interview. And Chrissy says, great conversation. Okay, guys. So thank you for joining us today on our Touch Base Daily Wisdom Wednesday with our Jelani Ameer. And he's putting in all that information. I'm going to put that into here so that way you guys can see it. I'm going to also put it into the description of the video after. Okay, guys. Tomorrow is our live with Chris and I will be here. And also, I'm also running a portrait session sale this month. Just right, so check on that. That's how you support photographers, is by using their services, buying their work. Jamal Shabazz sends the crowns. Look at that. Mr. Jamal Shabazz is in the building.
Oh, peace to the OG. Yeah,
always good to see him here. And I think we got it, y'all. I think we Jamal, I'm talking Jamal in my head. Jelani,
right.
Thank you again so much for joining us today. And guys, this was wonderful. We got to do a part 2.
Yeah.
So part 2
for
will
sure.
come. Part 2
For sure.
will come. And
What you
seeing
wanna do
all
next
the
month?
love in the building. Lisa says, thank you, Jelani. Jamel says, much love. Anthony sending the hearts and the loves and the fingers and the peace sign. And Rashawn sends the applause. And okay, guys, I got to get off here. Later.